Mazel Tov on your engagement.
It's exciting.
How's wedding planning coming along? Hi, I'm Leah Ahava.
I'm Elon.
We're both autistic, and I can honestly say we had a great wedding day, even though we didn't know that I was autistic at the time.
Right.
They say every wedding has a disaster, but ours kind of didn't.
Yeah.
So wedding planning can be really stressful.
Or fun.
Or both, usually both.
But mostly fun, hopefully.
Anyway, in this video, we're gonna talk about some ways to reduce stress, set yourself up to enjoy your wedding day, and do so your way. Some of these ideas may fit some couples better than others. The autistic community has diverse experiences and needs, so what makes sense to us may not be useful to you. Mm-hmm. I hope that you at least find something helpful here. So the first tip is when making decisions, always remember, and this might sound silly, but remember that this event is about you.
Yeah.
And it's for you. So you should be able to be yourself enthusiastically because it's your wedding.
Right. So you should talk with your fiance about your visions for the wedding before getting other involved, because it starts with you two, and then...
Yeah, like, do you want a big wedding, a little wedding? Where do you want your wedding? Is it going to be at like a venue, or is it going to be in a place that is related to your culture or religion, or anything else? When do you want it to be? When is it? Is it going to be in the next few months, in the next year, in the next number of years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind of timeline are we looking at? How simple or elaborate? There's lots of there's lots of different kinds of weddings, and you want the one that's right for you. So one tip regarding that timing, though, is that you will probably keep finding parts of your wedding to do planning stuff for all the way up until the wedding.
Right.
So the longer you're engaged, the longer you will be wedding planning.
Yeah. If you plan too short because you're engaged too short, you may not make what you wanted.
And you might make things very stressful for other people if you plan a wedding in a state that you don't live in and you only give people a few months of warning.
What? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Right. Don't be afraid to set firm boundaries. There might be people who don't like decisions you make, but it's your wedding, so they're going to have to live with it. If you and your future spouse like it, and it doesn't cause harm, and it's in budget, stand your ground. So I think on our wedding, we only had a few firm boundaries. Is that right? Yeah,
we limited the guest list, including us, to 50 people max. And that ended up being a really good choice for us because it meant that we were only inviting people that we actually wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And even there were people that we would have wanted to be there that, we invited to live stream because we weren't, it just wasn't right for us to have a bigger wedding.
Right.
So another tip is to decide which things that you need to personally handle and what things you can delegate. Hello, Frankie. And when you're delegating things, choose very carefully who you give what tasks to. Some of this could be obvious in the case of our wedding. We got married in Texas while we lived in New York. Well, who went venue hunting for us? My mother. Why? She lived in Texas.
Yeah, and at the same time, the religious component of the wedding basically fell on me. Why? Because I was the rabbinical student who was, in charge of supposedly knowing how to get married under the Jewish religion.
Yeah, the first Orthodox Jewish wedding that I ever attended was my wedding. And the first Orthodox Jewish wedding that my mother attended, despite the fact that she was a humongous, she was basically the person who you can really credit with planning our wedding. Yeah. The first wedding, the Orthodox Jewish wedding she ever went to was my wedding.
Right.
And she basically, one day at work, she just started laughing. And everyone in the office was very confused because out of nowhere, she just started laughing so hard she basically couldn't breathe. And everyone was so curious about what could possibly be so funny.
Yeah.
And so they're coming into her office and they're like, "What's going on?" And she says, "I'm planning an Orthodox Jewish wedding, but I've never been to one."
Right.
So that was really funny. And then another big tip is, we kind of touched on this, know who you want to invite and who you don't.
Yeah.
There's all of, these, fancy etiquette rules about this. I put etiquette in air quotes because sometimes there are things that people you do or don't want to invite to your wedding that might not match the etiquette rules, but they are true to your personal experiences. A lot of autistic people have, a history of like bullying or other things where, the etiquette rules might say that they should invite such and such a person because they invited this other such and such a person. Right. If there's somebody who protocol says you should invite to your wedding that you don't actually want at your wedding, don't invite them to your wedding. It's your wedding.
If there's protocol that says you shouldn't invite someone to your wedding and you want them there, it's your wedding. You can invite them.
Invite them to your wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So live streaming. So if you're having a small wedding, or even if you're not having a small wedding, you can always live stream your wedding so that people who can't make it can still be there. See the wedding, and then you can see it yourself if you forget what your wedding was like and you want to see how it went.
Yeah, we woke up the next day and we watched our own wedding video because we realized that we both literally did not remember our own wedding ceremony. It's like, that happened, but my actual recall of it is very, very hazy.
Yes, stress and excitement can do weird things to your memory.
Yeah, so it's really, even if it's just for yourself, if that's something that you want, definitely film your wedding.
Okay, so music. So we had a very strong rule beforehand that we did not want a band loud enough that would make me have to leave the wedding.
Yeah, because you were prone to migraines.
Right.
Our rule A number 1 was Elon is not allowed to have a migraine on his wedding day.
Yeah, but I think we originally,
we were originally planning to DJ it ourselves.
Yeah, originally we were just going to have some sort of recorded music from like a playlist, but my father wanted a band, and he wanted to pay for the band, and he said that a wedding without a band is not very much fun. So we said, okay, let's find a band we can actually listen to, and it does not have drums because...
And my mom knew just the band, so we ended up with a jazz trio with no drums. Those who don't know, I'm a Lindy Hopper, so it was my music, so It was perfect. And Elon, you don't really have super strong musical wants as opposed to diswants.
Well, we did have one.
Well, you didn't want to get a migraine from drums. I didn't want to
get a migraine from drums. And there were certain songs that we did absolutely reject ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. And there were other songs that we picked ahead of time, like What We Walked Into. And then, also, just speaking of music, I walked down to a jazz song, and there's a Jewish tradition, specifically an Ashkenazi tradition, where the bride does circles around the groom, and there wasn't anything that said that I had to do my circles walking, so I actually did a different dance step for each circle that I did.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. So another tip is to decide ahead of time what pictures you want and give a list to the photographer and a backup person wrangler. I did not get this done, and the result is that there are actually certain pictures from our wedding that I would have wanted that I didn't get because I didn't have a list that was given to the photographer, and I didn't have a designated person wrangler to say, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, the photographer, I think, had a list.
He did a great job.
But the person wrangling wasn't what it could have been.
Yeah, and then the next related point is don't let anyone rush your schedule along. One of the types of photos I didn't get was bridal photos of me in my dress and stuff like that, like just pictures of the bride. And part of the reason I didn't get that was because I was getting rushed along and I caved into pressure to get the meal started when I actually didn't feel done having pictures taken. I was just getting rushed along. So I finally just threw my hands in the air and said, fine, let's go eat. And, the whole thing that whole issue was kind of silly because the people who were standing around, they weren't just standing around waiting hungry. They had hors d'oeuvres. Yeah. They could wait.
Yeah. Okay. Schedule destim time if you know you'll need it for your wedding. So for a religious Jewish wedding, or specifically, I suppose, an Ashkenazi wedding, has it built in because after the ceremony happens, right? The couple is taken to a room where they have each other to themselves.
It's called yichud, and it's a perfect destim time.
Yeah, so
you've got snacks, and it's just the two of you, and you get to have some time that is without everybody else.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're having a different ceremony, you can still force the issue of destim time.
Yeah, you can still plan for it.
I think we did plan to have some books somewhere and a room to destim if we had needed them, which we didn't need them.
No, we did not, because we planned everything else so well that it was all just pleasant.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So expenses, yeah, weddings are expensive and employment is not necessarily a guarantee. So,
especially for autistic people, autistic employment statistics are terrifying.
Right. So don't feel bad about your price-saving measures. I mean, the most important part of the wedding is you getting married, and any expenses that didn't happen because you wanted to save money are not. They're not a problem, right? If it helps you and your spouse that you don't get something, then do what you need for you and your spouse, because it's the whole point of the wedding, not to bankrupt you and the entire family.
Yeah, and the easiest way to sort out what things are necessary and what things are just expectations of the public that really don't have any bearing on you would be only pay for things that you will regret not having when you look at the pictures 5 years later.
Right.
So for me, it was really important to have a good photographer because that's who takes the pictures.
Right. We wanted pictures.
Yeah, I wanted good pictures, so I wanted a good photographer. But I did my own hair and makeup because I knew how, and that wasn't worth me spending the money and on something where I'd completely forget who did it later.
Right.
And I also wanted to look like me. So the only flowers that we had were your boutonniere and my bouquet.
Right.
We didn't have like decorative flowers.
We didn't have flowers to throw at people.
No, I didn't have a throwing bouquet. I only had a carrying bouquet. And it's actually dried and on display. And
yeah, we wanted to reuse most of what we had for the wedding. So we set up the wedding canopy, the chuppah, we set up as a tablecloth that we could use for our Shabbat table. We set up...
So, when we have guests, we can, put out, our tablecloth and everyone's sitting there going, wow, this is beautiful. And we say, yeah, this is our chuppah.
The dress we set up that it could be used for, a dress on holidays like Passover.
I would have worn my wedding dress for this video, but it needs to go to the cleaners. But I actually do sometimes work my tiara and wedding veils into tichels for special occasions, like I did here. Wedding veil, wedding tiara.
Yeah, as you said, the bouquet we used vines that we needed to decorate these statues, right?
Yeah, the venue we had these half-naked lady statues, and my mom was terrified that it would scandalize the rabbi. So she got these plastic vines and had my brother and my cousin dress the ladies in front of the venue so that the rabbi would not be scandalized.
I don't think he noticed.
I don't think he did, but one of the funniest parts of our wedding day was after everyone was leaving when Danny and Ben, my brother and my cousin, were then having to undress the naked lady statues.
To put them back for the, the way they were for the next wedding.
So those vines that were dressing the naked ladies at our wedding are actually now part of our sukkah decorations. And it, reminds us of our wedding whenever we're in our sukkah, which, for those who don't know, that's relevant to a Jewish holiday called Sukkot that you can Google if you're interested in. Decorate
it.
Yeah.
And we reused the flowers and we reused the...
Yeah, we didn't reuse the food, but you can't really do that.
No.
So the main takeaway here is that your wedding is about you.
Yeah. So it should be the wedding that you want. It should accommodate your needs. Anything within reason, I suppose. But if other people don't like it, it's your wedding, and make it your wedding.
Yeah, and so I wanted to say thanks for watching this video, and if you liked it, do all the YouTube stuff. You can like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the things. And if you actually want to see our wedding ceremony from 3 years ago, I'll link it below, and I'll also link an article with another autistic, sensory-friendly wedding story from a totally different couple who's not us. Mm-hmm. And I think I'll also dig up the link for our wedding photographer because he was really good and he travels.